What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video. So today, I just wanted to quickly talk about some of my favorite sample libraries for romantic style music. And I wanted to make this video because I've seen quite a few discussions on, the best libraries for romantic scoring. And one of my favorite genres to write for is the romantic genre. The other one being more adventure, action-oriented stuff, all orchestral, of course, but slowing down the tempo and just going with something more passionate, more expressive is something I really enjoy as well. And it really allows me to just pull back and pull from those deeper emotions. So this is something I definitely want to cover really quickly with you. And I'll use my piece Love's Rapture as sort of a case study. I'll play through maybe the first half of it just until the end of the big chorus. And then we will talk about those sample libraries that we use to achieve the sort of warm sound that I'm going for on a general basis. So let me just play through and we will talk about it. Here we go. All right, let's stop there. I went a little further than I intended, but I also wanted to show you the B section a little bit because this is where the Woodwinds had more of a feature, just to switch up the instrumentation, the orchestration, right? So more of a contrast with the A section. But anyway, so you can see the general vibe that I went for in this piece. If I had to use a few words to describe it, I would say warm, I would say lush, connected, flowing, passionate, right? Those sorts of words that you would normally associate with romance can easily be associated with sample libraries and instruments as well. So let me start off with the soloist in the first A section. This is the solo viola from Tableau Solo Strings. And the solo viola really is sort of the standout feature in this library. There's the violin, viola, and cello, but many people have agreed that the viola just sounds kind of the most expressive. The legato is also the best in terms of the way it's connecting between the notes, and the sustains, the progressive vibrato, is really effective in this patch, in my opinion. Where in the violin and cello, it seems to come in a little bit fast, the vibrato. For the viola, it's kind of the opposite. It kind of sneaks its way in after a second or so, and it makes it feel really warm and very natural. So this library really is meant to be played in more of an exposed context, and so that's why I really used it in this soloist purpose, which I really enjoyed. And then in the background, I used Cinepiano, but not just the regular Cinepiano patch. I actually use the cinematic patch because it has a warmer, closer, more intimate sound. So let me show you kind of quickly what that sounds like. The regular standard piano patch is more bright and more neutral, but this one is a little bit closer. So let's just quickly hear that when the A section comes in here. So you hear it's relatively close, but it also has that tail that kind of washes out and surrounds you. So when I hear something like this, it makes me feel really warm and really fuzzy and just comforted. And that's sort of the vibes you want in a sort of a romance score, right? And then with the solo viola, it's perfect because the viola is a little bit more upfront, even more so than the piano, and it cuts through with a lot of detail as well. So that's kind of the combination that I really enjoyed using here. And just the viola itself can really just carry that melody in a really natural way, again, because of the strength of that legato and those sustains. So let's move on to the string ensemble. Now, this is, of course, really important because in the romance, the string section really is the backbone of the orchestra. It's just that classic timeless sound that we get from that section. And so for me, the default library I go with is usually Cinematic Studio Strings. And sometimes if I want a little bit more detail, I will combine that with CSSS or Cinematic Studio Solo Strings for that extra detail. So you can see CSS is here. We have the solo strings as well. They could also be used as first chairs or anything like that, but they have a very romantic, sort of passionate vibe that really lends itself well to this sort of thing. And then I also use the woodwinds and the brass. But you can see here I have the first violin, second violins, violas, cellos, and basses. So if we just solo that up a little bit, let's quickly hear what that sounds like. Right, these are all audio tracks, by the way, so they're not actually accessing the MIDI because I bounced them all to audio, but you get a sense of what these sound like. All right, then I also wanted to have a little bit more doubling or strength to that violin one melody. So I actually brought in Performance Samples Vista, a library that's pretty similar to CSS in a lot of ways, but it's legato only, and it goes even more over the top in terms of the romantic vibe and the vibrato compared to CSS. So layering that on top, I called it Violin's Passion, but let's add that into the ensemble as well so we can hear what that sounds like. So you hear the top line a little bit clearer now because I'm just doubling that same top line with Vista. Right? And here I have an additional 3 violins legato patch from that same library Vista. And it just adds that creaminess, that extra definition to the very top. And then after that, I also really enjoy Tina Guo's legato cello. I talk about this all the time. This is a wonderful library. I've had a chance to work with Tina herself, actually orchestrating one of her pieces, but this library I use in a ton of my own productions because it just sounds so smooth. And let me see, where does she actually play here? I think it's in the big chorus here. Right, huge vibrato, lots of emotion, and again, it cuts through the mix really well. She has a really unique performing style there. Then moving on to woodwinds, I really enjoy CSW. I talked about this before. I think out of the woodwind libraries I do have, I also have Berlin woodwinds. I've got a couple of other ones, but for a lot of my soloist writing, I'll either go with CSW or I'll go with the Soloist 1 and 2 libraries from Orchestral Tools. Those are specifically meant for soloist purposes. In this case, I went with CSW just for consistency's sake with CSS. Recorded in the same hall, and they have a really sweet tone that is just a really nice alternative to the Berlin. So let me quickly solo this up for you here, and it's just so we can hear the B section because that's where it kind of comes in. Okay, right here. So basically the flute is playing the melody on a high octave, and the English horn is doubling 1 octave below, and we have the bassoon playing counter melody, counter call and response sort of stuff. You hear how smoothly connected the legato is. The tone itself is not overly bright. It's nice and warm and round, and that's the vibe I wanted here for this piece. Yeah, even that retonguing, it's so soft and they place it really well, so I really enjoyed that one. Let's move on to the brass really quickly here. Let me see if I have it in this contact instance. So yeah, I have the CSB solo horn. I also have harp, glissandi, and timpani. Okay, so I think I have to open my other, yes, I do. Let me see here really quickly. 2 horns, patch. So I don't think I actually ended up using the solo horn from CSB, but I will use it sometimes as a nice alternative to Cinebrass. But speaking of which, Cinebrass, we have the two horns ensemble true legato patch here, and I really love Cinebrass because of its warm, clear, natural sound. Everyone likes Cinebrass, well, almost everyone likes Cinebrass, and so I use the two horns patch here. Let's just solo that one up really quickly. And one really cool thing is that they have poly legato in this library too, so I switch it to poly. And then, yeah, you can hear those transitions there, very nice. Right? And then the French horn and tuba legato, I believe I pulled... Yeah, so the tuba I pulled from, I think it was actually Berlin Brass originally, but then I replaced it with CSB. And then for the horn, maybe I did use CSB as well, looks like. So yeah, let's just maybe hear this on its own a little bit, the brass section. So the French horn is playing more of the soloist role because it's performing more of a melodic line, whereas we have the two horns playing more of a chorale function with the mid to low chords, and then the tuba just outlining the bass, right? Ooh. I don't think I've actually soloed up the brass before, but I really like how that sounded there at the very end. All right, so that being said, we just have the timpani and the extras left. So for the timpani, percussion, I brought in the cymbals, bass drum, and timpani all from Cineperc, and I don't know if I have them in this instance. I do. Bass drum is here, cymbals are here, and then timpani was in the first instance. So these are just, they're not playing a huge role, but let me see. So we have the timpani swelling, the cymbals as well, into a big crash, and then the bass drum just hits right on the downbeat, right? So I'm mainly using these for decoration, for emphasis moments on specific areas, like the downbeat of something or swelling into the downbeat into the next bar. Right, so very classic use there, but again, try not to go overboard and just using it for the romantic vibe only. Then we already talked about the piano. The harp gliss I like to use. That's also from Cine Harps. And yeah, that's my go-to harp of choice. I use the concert harp, which is basically normal plucks that you can that are just playable. And then they also have pre-recorded harp glissandi, which I do like to use because they're very natural and they sound great going into another downbeat. Right. Let's go maybe a little before that so we can hear that. Yeah, I really like the 2-octave runs up or glissando up because it's, again, a very natural, beautiful sound. So let's hear the choir as well. So for the choir, let's see. What library did we use here? Oh, I see. It's a different instance, right? If I remember correctly, I believe it's like time macro. Yes, so time macro or time micro, but they both have really beautiful choir sustains, really subtle. So this is just a mixed choir sustains ooh from the time library. Okay, just basically playing in thirds. Okay, and then to round out some of the low end, we also have Cine Orc, or orchestral chords in this case, when it's been updated. I also have the Vivaldi tremolos, which I believe are actually up here, yep, in the string section, but that's also another patch I like to use to swell into sections. And then harp plucks we talked about, and then a sub bass I just use at the very bottom to outline the low foundation a little bit more. But so here's the sub bass. You can barely hear it, but it's there. Right. And yeah, the low chords, I think I've used that at the very end. Yeah, that's from Cine Orc. So really nice pre-orchestrated chord there. Yeah, and that's basically it. So just to recap, a lot of it is Cine samples and Cinemax Studio Series. Those are kind of the two developers I mainly use for romantic scoring, but also actually for a lot of adventure stuff too, because both developers have a pretty fleshed out product suite where you can pretty much make any orchestral cue you want. because they kind of meant for those Hollywood style scores, and they kind of blend together really well as well. Like both are not overly dry nor overly wet, so in combination they do work really well together. And of course, this is just one case study, right? There are tons of libraries on the market that you can pick from, but this is just a practical example of how I pick and choose my different libraries. I try to go for libraries that have a cohesive, sort of similar tone, even if they're not recorded in the same space. Like when it comes to mockups and virtual instruments, you're basically aiming to get a result that's good enough. Like perfection is not attainable. Don't aim for that. That's just a recipe for disaster and overwhelm and frustration. So just aim for what is good enough for you, what you're happy with, 90%. Then publish it, get it out there, and you'll be so happy that you're done. And that's it. So hopefully that gives you a couple of ideas for my choices for romantic libraries. If you have any questions, let me know. As always, feel free to download my sample library buyer's guide if you want my full list of sample library recommendations, all the way from strings, winds, brass, percussion to piano libraries, jazz libraries, ethnic libraries, all that stuff I've condensed into one guide that you can take a look at to read over all my thoughts. I've also included the prices there as well, so you know how much you're investing, and also some practical tips for using the libraries that are in this guide as well. So you can have basically everything in one place, and I usually try to update it every so often with my new findings, my new favorites, so you stay updated with stuff I'm interested in as well. But anyway, I want to give it to you totally free. Just download it, use the first link in the box below, and you can grab it totally free. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video, and I'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.